Hello, I'm Daniel Meyer, music director of the Erie Philharmonic. You've asked me to give you an insider's perspective on some of the wonderful scores we plan to perform for you this coming season, and it is my great pleasure to welcome you to the world of Igor Stravinsky's Firebird. Igor Stravinsky's Firebird Ballet is a work of extraordinary genius. Add to that the fact that the composer was only 27 at the time of the work's premiere, it's even more of a 20th century miracle. Stravinsky was given what became the opportunity of a lifetime when he was invited by Serge Diaghilev to write the score for a brand new work to be premiered in Paris by the Ballet Russe. He seized upon the opportunity to write a work of incredible invention, sparkling and shimmering orchestral effects, rich Russian storytelling with an enormous debt to his mentor and his musical model, Rimsky-Korsakov. Ultimately, it's music that is just as effective on the concert stage as it is an inspired tapestry upon which the finest dancers of the ballet world can weave their brilliance. Today, some orchestras perform the complete ballet on the concert stage with its enormous orchestra and music that spans over 45 minutes. I love this original, but frankly, some of the music is so atmospheric that I feel as if it requires the ballet dancers in costume for a full appreciation of some of the music that's not necessarily propelled by melody. There are 3 concert suites that Stravinsky made from the original ballet. The first in 1911, just on the heels of the full ballet's premiere. It uses the same size orchestra as the original, and it clocks in at about 24 minutes. In the second orchestral suite from 1919, Stravinsky uses slightly different moments in a revised order, and it also carefully reduces the total number of musicians that are required on stage. This is by far the most widely known and the most often performed version of the music today on the concert stage. It contains all the important music, the memorable balletic moments, and it expertly expresses the innovation and magic of the original with a more affordable set of forces. I prefer the third suite from 1945. It takes advantage of the reduced orchestra that Stravinsky employed for the second suite, but it includes just a bit more of the important connective tissue that makes it feel more of the original ballet than merely a string of hits. It clocks in at about 30 minutes, which puts it nicely between the initial suites, but not as long as the full 45-minute ballet. Among the many innovations and strokes of genius Stravinsky employs in this ballet, here are a few of the elements that I would like to highlight, which I think make it a work of such genius and deserving of the instant fame that it brought this young composer in 1910. Let's first talk about Stravinsky's masterful orchestration. At first glance, orchestration, or the art of which instruments you use for which specific musical moments, could be considered superficial. I mean, after all, if you've got a great melody and some beautiful harmonies to back it up, what's the need for elegant window dressing? Does it really matter what combinations you use to transmit your ideas if you already have great ideas? Well, in Stravinsky's case, it's not so easy to separate a great musical idea from its orchestral clothing. For Stravinsky, it is just as important which instruments or which combinations of instruments are employed as the notes and the rhythms that are played. Listen now to how Stravinsky at the very beginning sets the scene in a fog. The slowly creeping repetitive line in the basses that seem to slink about like an overfed snake. Everything seems shrouded in mystery. Stravinsky pairs pizzicato, a plucking of the string, with arco, the typical use of the bow, to create a special sound. A pair of trombones seem to moan from the depths to add to the overall feeling of unease. Notice towards the end of this example how eerily the strings sound as they lightly skip up and down their strings with a very light touch. They're activating the harmonics of their instruments to cast a ghastly pallor on the scene and to add to the mystery. How about the variation of the Firebird? It's a brilliant combination of rapid-fire scales that run up and down the string and woodwind sections, coupled with trills in the flutes and clarinets. Trills are a rapid oscillation between notes to create the effect of fluttering wings. There's no doubt a bird has just taken flight, and the use of grace notes, or tiny notes attached to longer notes, simulate the pecking of a bird thrashing to and fro. The ideas themselves can hardly be called melodies, but when given the stunning orchestration that Stravinsky invents, the music springs to life in vivid ways. Another striking aspect to Stravinsky's art is the development of a very strong, sometimes unpredictable, and often violent rhythmic profile. Accents are placed on the wrong beat. Rhythms are repetitive, but syncopations, or the notes that fall on the offbeats, rule the day. Phrases end sooner than you might expect, and instruments enter on top of each other, anxious to be heard before their appointed time. All of these creative uses of rhythm make the music sizzle with, well, a fire. We know, of course, that Stravinsky would take much more advantage of these rhythmic techniques in ballets to follow. Petrushka and The Rite of Spring. But in Firebird, they're already in play. It's the rhythm that makes us so clearly realize that the Russian fairy tales that Rimsky-Korsakov brought to life in music are now going to come with a lot more rhythmic spice. And that spice will remain Stravinsky's calling card throughout his entire compositional career. Another aspect of Stravinsky that I think makes this Firebird music immediately popular is that when he uses a melody, it sounds exotic somehow. Rather than simply relying on the major and minor scales that we're so familiar with, Stravinsky writes in modes or scales that evoke the ancients, the once upon a time in a place far, far away variety. Now, this isn't a novelty on Stravinsky's part. Russian composers like Cui, Rimsky-Korsakov, Balakirev were all trying to create a Russianness in their orchestral music that would distinguish it from their Austrian and German counterparts. But where Stravinsky takes it to the next level is how he's able to swing so deftly from that which sounds ancient to that which sounds modern. What was once old is new again. Listen to this evocation of the past in a beautiful, soulful melody played by a solo bassoon. This music is called a berceuse, or a lullaby, and it truly sounds as if this melody could have passed through the generations from one cradle to the next. Incidentally, it's hard to think of any bassoonist in a major orchestra winning his or her job without playing this solo gorgeously in an audition. What's a great piece of Russian music without a great ending? In most memorable cases, this features a thunderous, celebratory finish. Tchaikovsky, Borodin, Shostakovich, Prokofiev, and others all understood the value of a fabulous finale. In the Firebird, Stravinsky does them all one better with a slowly evolving coda that starts with a single horn solo and morphs over time into a soaring, bracing hymn with winds, strings, and brass glowing. But then he ratchets up the intensity even more, using the very techniques we've just discussed. Of impressive rhythmic invention, coupled with masterful, color-drenched orchestration. It's a finale that deserves the huge bravos that this music typically gets, whether it's played in the ballet pit or on the concert stage. Thank you for your support of the Erie Philharmonic. We cannot wait to get back on stage and bring you the great music that you love, like this Firebird Suite by Igor Stravinsky. Until then, stay healthy, stay safe, and keep music in your heart.